It is the year of the Kraken. Our heroes return from the frosty winter to the sea. Have a game under the warmth of the Hearthstone. StarLadder I-League StarSeries Finals. Having slain countless opponents to reach this point, Chinese players Xi Shuai and Aichoro shall join the masters of the game Shikso, Naiman, Hoej, Jabba, Dr. Hippie, Stansivska in Shanghai for a shot at taking the throne. From the highest-ranking ladder players to the hidden dark horses, who shall reign supreme? Conquer 4, 5, ban 1, double elimination. Will the champion once again remain in China, or shall a new victor emerge? July 8th to the 10th. Start from 10 a.m. Shanghai, China. Come and witness the tournament of the century.
Welcome back, everyone, to the StarLadder I-League Star Series Season 2. I'm Noxious, and with me is Firebat on the casting couch. We've got Series 2 of the day. We've had the first one, the Izoer versus Dr. Hippie, where Dr. Hippie just ended up kind of dominating the series. If you watch the matches, it was really, really sick. The freeze mage at the end even locking down.
Yeah, he didn't seem to stumble really at all.
Yeah.
I mean, Dr. Hippie's a player we haven't seen too much of, but I casted him a ton throughout StarLadder. I'm looking forward to seeing him play here. And he doesn't disappoint. You know, he's been very consistent all throughout the StarLadder performances. And other than that, he's only played in really one other tournament, which was the European Winter Championships, where he got second. So, I mean, the guy's, although a newcomer and pretty unexperienced with the scene, has shown really consistent results overall and is a name to watch out for. Yeah,
and his teammate Naiman's going to be playing right now up against Hoej from Navi, which is also a 6-0 teammate. So there might be a team kill later on during the round, but for the time being, these two players are separated. I just want to point out how interesting Naiman's lineup was during the qualifier, where he brought Pirate Warrior. It was like a hyper aggressive hunter with a mage as well. It was just like this really aggressive lineup, which I don't think he's going to be bringing today. Like, I'd be very surprised.
I'd be really surprised to see it again. Really, the reason why his lineup worked so well in the qualifiers is because everyone was bringing Rogue at that time. Everyone was really on the hype train about how great Rogue is. And now the stereotype and the talk around the community really is that Rogue blows. That, just to put it bluntly, like, everyone thinks Rogue's terrible. So
I mean, it's all right, but it's just not. It's like that last deck you bring to the event, right? It's not like one of your core decks. Even the die-hard Rogue players are not necessarily bringing it. So Hoej walking to his seat to get set up for the game against his opponent. Now, Hoej's a player that I think one of the nicest guys out there. I mean, he's just always kind of chill. A very chill player in the Hearthstone community. Some of them are more shy and whatnot, but he'll talk to people. Usually very, very
no
social.
Complaints about him.
Absolutely not. No, he doesn't.
Great guy.
Doesn't have a dog, so you don't have to kick him out. So he's
that's too soon, man. That's too soon.
I just feel like overall Hoej has been kind of a very solid player all across the board. It's interesting how you have a lot of names in Hearthstone where they're not the ones that pop to your mind the first when you think about it, but when you see them play, you just wonder why that's the case, because they just end up dominating all the way through, and they play just nearly flawlessly.
Yeah, I'd say that's pretty much the same for like most of the European players here, besides Dr. Hippie, who's a little bit newer on the scene. Everyone else from the European and even Jab from the American side. Oh, never mind, we're going into the interview right now, so we'll
enjoy that.
My favorite class right now is Warlock, and mostly because of Reno Lock and hand lock backland. It's just, I like to have many cards in my hand and have many decisions to make. The most and least. The problem in Hearthstone is that sometimes there's something you can't control, like for example a Yogg or any other energy effects. And the thing I like the most in Hearthstone is that it feels really, really good if you can outplay an opponent and still win the game. Even though, let's say he got the best hand, but he makes mistakes, and you can make good plays and then overcome and win the game. I think the last expansion is really, really good, the standard, because if they didn't make the standard, there will just be more and more cards, and they have to make the cards better and better. So it's like, it's healthy for the meta that some cards gets out, so it doesn't get more and more OP. And right now I like the meta because I think it's really, really good, and it's not totally stable yet. There's still some new decks that can come up, I think. The difference between StarLadder and all tournaments. Well, this is like a close tournament, so the skill level in this tournament is really, really high. There's no easy opponent you can face. And it's best of 7. It's really, really rare that you play a tournament with best of 7 with a ban, which means you have to be good with a lot of different decks. It's really hard to play 5 decks perfectly. It's like, even though people sometimes think Hearthstone is easy, it's really, really hard to master 5 different classes because there's so many different matchups. And then there's a lot of strategical things because you can assume that some people bring Warrior and Shaman and Warlock because it's like you have to pick 5 classes, so you can try to make some kind of target strategies because like make 5 classes and focus one of the other. So there's a lot of strategical things in this format which make it really interesting. Naiman, I know I'm pretty sure that Naiman gonna bring a aggro lineup which fits my lineup fine, I think, because I've seen him in the last tournament and he plays a lot of tempo aggro decks. And have never played against Naiman in any big tournaments, but I've played against him a lot of times on ladder and small online cups, and he's a really, really good player, but I think I can take him.
All right, so Hoej recognizes that Naiman is going to be a tough opponent. Recognizes the skill level across the board in the event so far is really high. Naiman, however, is kind of a good player from what I hear from the title he took at the European. It's one of those things where he's guaranteed himself a spot at BlizzCon. One of the things that's really difficult, I think, to pin Naiman on is the exact decks he's going to bring. Because, yes, he's more of an aggressive player in general, kind of like 6-0, put them in the same boat as far as the general decks they play. But I've also seen a ton of very defensive plays from Naiman in the past. With Freeze Mage, it's a deck that he's played quite a bit at BlizzCon. In the qualifier, at least. Not to the best, necessarily, but pretty well.
The pattern I've really seen from Naiman is he kind of just plays the meta decks.
Yeah, the
that's
best
really
ones.
popular in the meta right now. And if you're just going based off that, then I expect we're going to see, Druid, probably the Yogg Druid, sometimes the Cthulhu Druid. They're definitely arguable between which one of those is, people's personal preference. Then you got the Warrior, which is either Tempo Dragon or Cthulhu.
Tempo Dragon, Patron, Pirate. I mean, pick one, but usually there's like the core ones are going to be Cthulhu.
And there's probably going to be a Shaman. It's probably going to be either aggro or mid-range. And then from there you got the 4th deck, which is usually
Warlock.
the Warlock. You either see the Zoo or the Reno Lock. And then the real question comes down to the 5th deck and who thinks what 5th deck is better. And would you look at that?
Yeah. Would you look at that? Turns out there's a Hunter on Hoej's side and the Mage on Naiman. So Naiman is, he's played a tempo aggro Mage. We saw him in the qualifier stages. The Warlock is more likely to be a Zoo than anything else. The Shaman, usually on the aggro side. And the Warrior, I think, is one of those decks that can be geared towards just about anything. But if Hoej expects aggro, like he said in the interview, then I think you would expect more of a Dragon/Tempo Warrior approach.
Yeah, and the ban on the Druid's a little bit surprising. It's the first time we've seen Druid being banned out in really the entire tournament. For most of competitive tournaments, Druid has never really been popular of a ban lately, but I think it's a decent ban, honestly. I think Druid's a pretty solid deck right now. I think it lines up pretty well against Hoej's classes. It has a decent chance against Hunter, decent chance against Shaman. If it's Yogg Druid's favored against Cthulhu Druid in the mirror if Hoej has Cthulhu Druid, and then Druid is also pretty favored against Reno Lock, and Hoej is very known for playing Reno Lock over Zoo. He almost never plays Zoo in tournaments, so I respect the ban from Hoej. They're kind of going a different approach with it and banning out that Druid. If you look at some stat reports, Druid's one of the higher win rate decks out of all the decks in Hearthstone right now. Yeah,
and one of the things, too, is that if your Warrior gets banned because you expect Naiman to be playing an aggressive lineup, then suddenly you do need to ban that deck out of the lineup just to have a better matchup against the rest. So, Naiman will be starting up with his Warlock. Looks like a Zoo, most likely, from just the starting hand, and Hoej's side with a Warlock as well, except with the Sunfear Protector, we have a good amount of information just telling us it's probably Reno.
Yeah, probably Reno Lock. Hoej usually plays the N'Zoth Reno Lock with featuring all the Death Rattles, one of the slower variations. Doesn't usually run the 30 damage combo in it, so his Hoej's Reno Lock deck list was actually piloted by Frozen to #1 Legend on NA, so Hoej is likely to be pretty true to that Reno Lock list as it did finish #1 Legend. So I expect to see a similar thing with the Possessed Villager, the Harvest Golem, the Infested Tauren, all that sort of tech cards.
Yeah, I think a lot of players favor that type of Reno over the combo, which is interesting because in the mirror match usually the combo list ends up faring a lot better. Even though yesterday,
plays Reno, though. Nobody plays Reno, so you never see the mirror match anymore because it's such an uncommon deck.
Right. What's one of the quirks too of Hoej's list is that if it's running the same as Frozen, it's running Lord Jaraxxus. which gives him a lot more closing potential against some decks, where otherwise it's just trying to drag out the game without winning the game without the combo. So
especially against Warrior. Lord Draxus is insane against any sort of like Cthulhu Warrior. Even if you're able to get Draxus out really early before their Cthulhu's big enough to kill you, or you just have board control with it, you can usually just win any control game.
Yeah. Well, looks like Hoej will have a slightly slower start. He didn't pick up any of his 2-drops. There's not that many in the deck, Doomsayer being probably one of the more important ones if you're expecting aggro, but he does have the Imp Gang boss. He does have the Hellfire, so he's usually able to transition from that mid-game, assuming good follow-ups come up.
Yeah, it's a little bit interesting here. You can coin out the Imp Gang boss. It's not very great on the board because it doesn't like trade favorably with the Voidwalker even, so it's a bit slow. You haven't used your coin to deal with the minions, so you may want to just tap and save your coin for Hellfire potentially and then develop afterwards. It's a really tough split decision here if you want to be super proactive on the board and make your following turns a little bit weaker because he has to go coin Imp Gang boss and then his follow-up's Earthen Ring Farseer and everything's a little bit slower from there.
Yeah.
Or you can try and wait out and try and go for coin Hellfire.
But that gives 3 drops to the Warlock who's playing Zoo with Darkshire Councilman being available or the possibility of Imp Gang boss, which makes the Hellfire a ton weaker. But in this case, the punish is not going to be there.
He's rewarded for his risk here. Like, as you said, if there's an Imp Gang boss or a Darkshire Councilman coming down here, this coin Hellfire feels awful. But it's a terrible matchup for Hoej. Hoej is like, you know, at 40% win rate in this matchup on average. So taking some risks in the early game that have, you know, the percent chance you get punished isn't very high because they have to have one of those 3-drops that they're not keeping off the mulligan. So the odds of them drawing into one compared to, you know,
with the life tap especially, right? There's no life tap on turn 2 since there was a curve. Then, of course.
So they've only seen 2 extra cards in their deck. The odds of those 2 cards being a 3-drop, it's in your favor to wait for the Hellfire. So I really like the line of play by Hoej here, just kind of identifying the odds here and taking a very intelligent risk.
Yeah, looks like Naiman is going to have to decide what he wants to do here. The life tap from Hoej indicates that, well, I probably have some answer to it, and I'm not willing to commit any kind of aggressive, you know, coining out a 3-drop. So if I refrain from playing minions as Naiman, that is, I'm conserving my resources extremely efficiently, and it looks like that's exactly what he's going to do, not even committing the Flame Imp, knowing that he can squeeze in more damage with the Abusive Sergeant here.
He really expects this Hellfire to be coming out, and he feels that his board's strong enough that if a Hellfire does not come out, that he's far enough ahead that he's going to win the game anyway.
Right, which I really like. I think Naiman's play here is flawless.
Very good. I think identifying the situation perfectly, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
There's no 3-drop that he can't handle. The key thing here is he's got the Crazed Alchemist, so even if like Imp Gang boss comes out, he doesn't need to hold back the Abusive Sergeant to really deal with the Imp Gang boss. He can then just use the Crazed Alchemist to flip it and kill it basically for free with the Abusive Sergeant on the field, and there's no real 3-drop that's too threatening for him. Any coin 4 play, it's not a big deal for him. The AoEs he's held back against. I guess Twilight Drake is the biggest punish against him, but even then he's got the Crazed Alchemist to just flip the Twilight Drake.
Yeah, I think one of the best plays for Hoej here would be Demon Wrath, but he doesn't hold it, so there's really no good way to avoid committing. Either you play the Imp Gang boss again to try to fight off for that better Hellfire in the future, or maybe you weaken a few minions on the board, or you just Hellfire now, knowing full well that this play with the life tap indicates that Naiman is just going to he's ready to refill the board as soon as you pop the Hellfire. So a good counterplay there from Hoej, recognizing that Hellfire is just not going to accomplish anything.
Yeah, it's just not good enough anymore. Naiman successfully navigated around it. Naiman picks up an Imp Gang boss, which is a minion that allows him to kind of safely play around Hellfire, but at the same time, if he's developing the Imp Gang boss, it's very difficult for him to remove Hoej's Imp Gang boss without allowing it to get very much value, unless he wants to commit a Power Overwhelming, which is one of those crucial burst cards that you really need to close out the game against Reno Lock and take trades against some of the bigger minions. So it's kind of costly. It's really hard to kind of leverage if that's worth even doing.
Yeah, it's really difficult right now for...
I think it is, though.
Yeah.
I would prefer him to Imp Gang boss, Power Overwhelming on the Abusive Sergeant, run it into the 2-4, and then take the value trade with the 1-3.
And still set up like the forced removal piece, which is likely to be really awkward. I mean, even assuming a Stampeding Kodo, it's still an awkward board, unless it hits the exact Imp Gang boss after the coin play.
Yeah.
So the worst case scenario would probably be a Stampeding Kodo hitting the Imp Gang boss. Otherwise, he's in a great spot. And right now, we know that for a fact that Hoej does not have that. There's also no way for him to get a really clean Hellfire play at all. Yeah, and no Shadow Flame either until turn 6, assuming he even had it. So, yeah, Naiman's feeling pretty safe here.
Yeah, for sure. This is how you play Zoo in the matchup. You just make sure that you can space out your resources enough, that you're committing enough on the board that you're threatening them, dealing damage fast enough, but also holding back just enough to make sure you're playing it around the AoEs and just really walking that line very tightly. And it's really well done here. Hoej, though, on the other hand,
He's going to look to find a room for that Doomsayer to fall down as soon as possible. So there is definitely merit to just dropping Doomsayer with Ooze or even Coin Farseer Doomsayer, committing like a lot of resources for this. But also, if the Doomsayer dies, then he keeps a 3-3. And that way, at least he's able to contest the board a tiny bit better.
Yeah, without having like Shadow Bolt or anything to clean up this Imp Gang boss to set up his Hellfire to be successful, it's just super awkward. You could think about, like, you're just playing the Infested Tauren, right? It's the 4-mana play, but it just gets gobbled up by that Imp Gang boss so efficiently.
Yeah, is there ever a world in which you're trying to just, like, play so far ahead that you go for, say, Ooze Doomsayer into Coin Emperor, and then you try to set up an early Nether just to be able to clean up the board and stabilize off of it?
I could follow that line of play, but unfortunately for Hoej, it's not going to work out the way he wants it to, because Naiman's been holding on to this Crazed Alchemist, so he has the ability to, you know, basically use Crazed Alchemist Battlecry to deal 7 face damage.
Yeah, that is insane.
It's a pretty good Battlecry.
2 mana, deal 7 to a minion that would otherwise wipe your board. It's a really good trade-off. Sometimes you'll be tempted to keep the Crazed Alchemist for offensive potential, but you know this is one of the few decks that's running Doomsayer still. You know, a lot of them have been, even Control Warrior nowadays still cuts it out. You'll find that the Crazed Alchemist does not find as much value as it used to, but in this case, the payoff is huge.
Wow, Naiman's being so passive. He's playing around mind control tech maybe by holding back that Flame Up, but it feels like he may be, you know, being too patient now. He's walking that line a little bit too close to the chest and really aggressively playing around the AoE board clears, which is going to allow Hoej to get a pretty clean Emperor off here.
Does that play around Sylvanas at all, though? That's one of the things I'm wondering. Like, does not committing more also play around other types of board clears or AoEs in the future? Like Shadow Flame with 2-drop, the Ooze would have been kept, probably, if there were such a play.
If Naiman had just, like, played the Flame Imp, you'd have so much more damage being represented. You can still, like, do 8 from hand, right, with the Gormok PO after playing the Flame Imp if everything sticks around. But, yeah, it's interesting to see him play so passively.
I mean, this is a lot of damage. Like, you're talking, like, the Gormok plus PO is, like, some kind of small amount of damage.
Yeah,
it's huge in this
burst,
case,
obviously,
right?
yeah. Super
it's
huge,
insane. I think one of the things you're doing, too, is that if the opponent's not playing something like Reno soon enough, they're feeling threatened, like, really hard, to where you can still whittle them out. And if you commit too much before the Reno and suddenly you lose your board, you can't refill fast enough with the life taps.
Double Direwolf Alpha powerful. I mean, so much damage as well. That's 8 in another way to do.
Yeah, I think you might have to go use, you know, the Flame Imp plus the PO, you know, the Void Walker, and then play Gormok, try to maybe get a good trade. And from there, you should be able to pilot this board state, unless there's a massive board clear coming out 1 turn from now, like after Reno. Because if there's a Twisting Nether, this Emperor represents it a ton.
Yeah, this Emperor definitely represents the possibility for a Nether coming out pretty early in the game, but it's also just super annoying, and he's got the question here, does he bother killing it? Or does he just go all face? Because he has so much burst in hand. If there is no Reno, he doesn't need to kill it. But the way he's playing and how he's, like, under-committing resources all the time, I definitely feel like Naiman believes there's a Reno in Hoej's hand. And he feels like his hand is strong enough that even if there is a Reno in my opponent's hand, I can be slow enough and be grindy enough that I can beat Reno with my current hand. So that's kind of what's going through Naiman's mind, I feel like, as he's been kind of slow playing this game, being, like, super passive. And Hoej doesn't even have the Reno.
There's none, but I mean, if he's playing around it that hard, Naiman thinks I can play around the Reno and still end up winning. So that's kind of what it comes down to. Now, Hoej does pick up the Shadow Bolt to make this Hellfire a tiny bit more appealing, but even then, it's not the best. It's, however, like, it's very vulnerable to any type of burst. Any charge minion, like the Hellfire is just a risk at this point.
Hellfire is pretty sketchy.
Yeah, might you ever just consider going for, like, Earthring Farseer with Infested Tauren and Sun Fury? Gives you 2 taunts. And you heal a little bit.
You would Shadow Bolt instead of the Infested Tauren, I believe, with that, just to get rid of maybe the 4/4.
Sure.
Or maybe the Knife Juggler. They're both so threatening.
Forbidden Ritual says hello. With the Juggler on the board and 7 mana open, I mean, that's a full refill. And a lot of knives coming to your face, so.
Yeah, it's definitely a tricky spot for Hoej here to navigate. Like, using the Hellfire the turn before you're about to play Twisting Nether doesn't feel very appealing, so I think you do want to try and set up some sort of taunt wall here.
He does go for the Infested Tauren instead. I mean, that does leave the Sun Fury open to be used with the Cairn later on, or Sylvanas even.
He could have taken a safer line here with the Earthen Farseer and the Sun Fury. It heals for 3, puts a bigger taunt out on the field, but then his taunts for the remaining game are just that Infested Tauren. He really needs the Sun Fury to hit something bigger later on because he doesn't have Reno Jax in his hand. After the Nether, he needs to taunt up something big like the Karen or, a Twilight Drake if he finds it. So I really like his play here, evaluating that he needs to take the risk now so that he can actually win the game later on.
Yeah, well, in this case, I think Naiman is going to be able to find a lethal off of just the Direwolf Alpha with the Power of Whelming, right? Because if we see the pop on the Tauren, assuming Direwolf goes in, he is left with a roll of 4, 7, so
yep, there's lethal
11 on board that I can see here, and with the juggle on top.
Yeah, he's got 11 and a juggle, so he's got even potentially more than 11. Yeah, there's the juggle that goes face. So
here we go. That is going to lock the game in favor of Naiman. Very well played by him, by the way. Like the early navigation of I think the tell that Hoej was going to have the Hellfire at that point was what dictated him to life tap and then play just abusive. Don't commit too much. It's weak against Coil, but it's extremely strong against any types of board clear.
And he continued that line of play throughout the game. He recognized that, my hand's strong enough that even if my opponent has Reno Jackson, I can hold back enough resources that I can actually beat Reno Jackson if that comes out. And we saw him just continue life tapping throughout the game and continue. He still had tons of cards to refill in his hand at the end.
And Doomguard's left in the deck possibly, a lot more charges.
The whole top end there.
That was no defensive Artgars had been played either, so we can just keep refilling the board. One thing to mention though is that Hoej, I think the play that he made with the Emperor coin, setting up for the early Nether, allowed him to play Nether on 7 and open up a life tap on 8 for a potential Reno top deck at the very end there.
Sure.
Which was also very well evaluated. It's just the Demon Wrath wasn't there when he needed it. Shadow Flame wasn't there, so.
It just comes down to the turn 3 play, right? It's just as Hoej, as Reno Lock turn 3, oftentimes if you tap in that situation, your opponent on ladder is going to overextend there and you win the game.
Yeah, on ladder, they're going to do that.
On ladder, they're going to do that. It's just like, can you expect your opponent in a tournament setting to also play that way?
I don't think so.
Or do you have to adjust your line of play based on the caliber of your opponent, and then maybe you have to play the 3-drop there, even though it's a little worse. Yeah. It plays around the fact that they may identify that you're going for Hellfire, not overextend.
So it's a mind games that the Reno Log ends up losing most of the time when they end up being caught on it. Like but if somebody calls your bluff, you're stuck.
I still I respect the turn 3 tap. I think that's the line I would have taken as well. It's just interesting to think about the tournament dynamic and what happens because on ladder I make that play all the time. Always works out.
Yeah. I'm sure you're like, there's no way this guy doesn't overextend with 7 minions as soon as he can, and then you just win on the back of that. Yeah. One Hellfire cleans up like 4 cards in the early game. So.
It's just the nature of actually knowing the insides and outs of the matchup from the Zoo perspective and realizing, hey, I'm favored in this matchup. I can slow play this and still win. My cards beat his at the end of the day.
He's got 1 Shadow Bolt, no Dark Bomb. I can just play cards one at a time and eventually starve the Warlock. Well, we'll see the Naiman Shaman versus Hoej's Druid. Looks like Feral Rage with Power of the Wild indicates a Yogg-Saron Druid. Naiman with the Eternal Sentinel, not a card you see very often in Shaman, which means usually you'll find that this is played in some more minion-centric Shaman decks that cycle a lot more. And they're still on the aggro side.
The key thing about the Eternal Sentinel that I always find is it's always paired with Ancestral Knowledge.
Exactly, yeah.
Those 2 cards are just like always in the same deck. So oftentimes the cut you make to go for the Ancestral Knowledge Eternal Sentinel package is you cut the 6 mana 5/5 taunts.
Thing from below.
The things from below, yeah, exactly. So those are generally speaking out of the picture. The deck's more about burning your opponent rather than board control.
Yeah, I find this is kind of reminiscent of the earlier...
the Crackle versions, basically.
Yeah, the Crackle versions with, like, I think, like, Insomnia 56, 6 Obrat, something like that, with double elemental destruction. And Lava Shock was played. In this case, it would probably be substituted by Eternal Sentinel. But the same reasoning goes, where you're fighting for the board more. You have a much better matchup against, like, the kind of Zoo deck, since you're trying to clean up the board a little bit. Like, you're playing for board control through spells and minions, as opposed to just being a rush-down deck. Interesting choice there by Naiman to bring this deck. I wonder what prompted the choice to bring this type of list as opposed to another one. Just a cycle?
Honestly, like a big debate between players of which is better.
Okay.
Some people say that Ancestral Knowledge and the draw version of Shaman's better. Other people say the board control 5/5 taunt version's better. So it's just different opinions of consistency and.
Yeah, I feel like nowadays aggro Shaman's kind of all migrated to the the hybrid version, if you want to put it that way.
With the taunts. The things from below have been like super standard for a really long time, but there's benefits and disadvantages to both. The things from below list has a lot larger % chance to nut draw people. Like you can get the solid curve of just super strong minions that going out, whereas the Ancestral Knowledge version has a bit more consistency to it. You get that card draw factored in. You can find that little bit of reach that you need more often. You don't rely on hitting, like, Totem Golem into Tuskar, into things from below. So you don't have those draws where you just have 2 things from below in your hand at the beginning.
And you end up being stuck hero powering
so
for 4 turns.
I would say overall the deck is a little bit lower on the power level scale, but it is a little bit higher on the consistency scale. So that's sort of the give and takes with it.
All right, well, Hoej is faced with a tough decision. There's the option of going for Innervate Coin Nourish to get the 2 mana, just to be able to pop the shield to then get the swipe on turn, on the following turn, which also leaves you with a follow-up Force of Nature, which is not bad.
And it gets you really close to that Yogg, honestly. Starts speeding up that process a little bit.
Sure. You just have to get some decent RNG on the Yogg, and you'll be good to go.
Yeah.
And he's going to opt to play the 3-2 here, sacrificing it to the gods of the Flame Tongue Totems, basically. Yeah. But incidentally, that pops the shield automatically, gives you a little bit more kill, I guess, on the swipe, where you deal more damage with it. So that's probably the reasoning that's going through his mind here.
It does force the action of a Flame Tongue Totem to be required. So if there is no Flame Tongue Totem, then this is way better for him because the 3-4 trades into the 3-2, and then he can swipe something other than the Totem Golem to kill the next minion that Naiman plays. Yep. In the instance of a second Totem Golem, this would work out incredibly well.
I think the Eternal Sentinel here for Naiman is also unlocking the Rockbiter weapon. It's another option. If he goes for the Eternal Sentinel, gives him an auto-clear, and he gets 3-2 with a 3-4. In this case, that was kind of a gamble, and the swipe would have worked exceptionally well if the 50-50 had not gone in the favor of Naiman.
Yeah, exactly. So now he's kind of board missioning and trying to set up an even cleaner swipe here, using all of his mana to play Force of Nature. And then on the following turn, he can use Swipe and Wrath in the same turn. It's just a bit more mana efficient. He's able to clean up more things. Just using Force of Nature as, a setup piece here. Yeah,
this is a bit of a nightmare for Naiman, though, because he was thinking, you know what, I have this board. It's usually invulnerable to anything barring Swipe plus another removal piece. In this case, though, one card ends up spawning 3 minions that then set up the swipe. He was trying to play around a little bit more. Suddenly, it's a disaster.
Well, the crisis could be averted here by simply rolling Healing Totem.
Yeah, actually, let's 25% it. There's a good play where he can play, Flame Juggler number 2, 75% chance to hit one of the minions, which then lets the Argent Squire squeeze in more value out of it.
Yeah.
And then you can use your Rockbiter to clean up more if you want, or your minions and try to roll the healing.
Yeah, using your Rockbiter and then trading in your Totem Golem would play around Swipe really effectively. Swipe would then only kill, the Totem Golem and that's it.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Or you can push 9 damage as well.
Yeah, you still aggro Shaman at the end of the day. Yeah, I don't hate it.
It's got to be good at some point. Now, in this case, though, Hoej has the perfect hand, I think, to handle something like this. It's one of the best possible outcomes for him.
Yeah, the Power of the Wild here might actually be pretty sick, making those minions 3/3, able to clear off the Flame Tongue Totem in one go, and then able to clear off a Flame Juggler with the other one, and then Wrath the other Flame Juggler, and suddenly his board's looking pretty.
Wipe the 5/4 on the back of that, and leave the Flame Juggler alive so your 3 attack minions can clean it up.
Yeah, you could swipe the Totem Golem as well, trade in one of the 2/2s into the 0/2 Flame Tongue Totem, and then Wrath down one of the Flame Jugglers, trade into the other Flame Juggler. Your opponent's board's clear. You got a 2/2. You're sitting
you Power the Wild Swipe. Good
yeah, Power of the Wild Swipe is also
because it leaves you with a 3/1 and a 3/3 at the end of the day.
Against your opponent's 2/3.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't mind that either. I think all of those plays are pretty valid. It's just figuring out what is the absolute best.
What punishes you the most? Doomhammer, it might be something you're wondering about. So if you leave minions with too low amount of health on the board, that might be a worry of yours. But
he's still contemplating it. It's really tough to say which one's better.
Yeah, I'm kind of partial to the getting a 3 health minion on board, because that way if Doomhammer hits, usually it doesn't take care of both your minions at once.
Sure, that is a fair point. It definitely navigates quite nicely against Doomhammer on curve. When you see your opponent having one card sticking in your hand this whole time, which it happens to be Eternal Sentinel, but it could very much as well just be Doomhammer. So Hoej probably is assuming there's a % chance that it's Doomhammer. Let's make sure Doomhammer on curve isn't that great against me. So at least if Doomhammer curve comes down, Naiman has to take 6 damage to full clear the board.
Yeah, and in this case, Rockbiter Weapon is probably going to be used in order to clean up the 3/3, because otherwise the amount of value it gets is just too much. I mean, you're looking at Tunnel Trog that's undefended, and it's already bad enough that a 3/1 can trade into it.
Yeah, it's starting to look kind of grim for Naiman, though, as he's starting to fizzle out of cards. And
Additional knowledge is going to have to be picked up soon enough.
Yeah, Hoej has got the Yogg to reload potentially pretty soon, and isn't really slowing down.
All right, so if you play this, this turn, if you're Hoej, do you ever try to cycle the Wrath, or do you just go full removal with your hand? Because I wouldn't necessarily be against cycling.
I'm not against it either. I think it's risky. but is it a risk you need to take? Your opponent's sitting on one card. You assume it's not Doomhammer based on how things went.
Yeah.
So then what do you place it on?
Oh,
it's
man.
really
what
hard to tell
draw.
what it could possibly be. He must assume it's like Lava Burst then, if he's cycling.
Sure.
I don't know. If it's like so close to killing you too at the same point though, so it's really hard to identify how risky you want to be with it. Maybe he's just got the God read and knows it's Eternal Sentinel, and he's like, yeah, it's not burst. We can be pretty greedy with our draws here.
Yeah, I think Hoej is going to pin Naiman on a more aggressive list.
I think he's pinning it on Lava Burst if he's trading with the Tunnel Trog.
Agreed.
So he's
yeah, I mean,
taking
there's a
care
lot
of
of
that minion
damage
instead.
because you expect the Tunnel Trog to go above a 2/3 in this case if you're trading into it. So it's either Feral Spirit or Lava Burst or Doomhammer. Feral Spirit you would have seen a long time ago.
That's true.
So it's probably going to be a removable piece like Lava Burst. He expects to lose the Drake here, but does not. So it's going to be somehow like a level of good news. On the flip side, Hoej needs to find a swipe.
Yeah.
Like otherwise, this
he
is going to
didn't
get
find it.
nasty.
He needs to find now like what even helps him. Mulch is
Okay, let's think that one through because you want a Wild Growth to get Yogg on 9, right?
I think you just Wild Growth. I don't think you want a Mulch here. It gives your opponent resources, the ability to replay a minion. It could potentially be a big minion as well and be just absolutely destructive for you. So
Reckless Rocketeer.
I think you really just want to prioritize getting that Yogg out and praise Yogg-Saron and hope it carries you home.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think at this point it's all about the Wild Growth getting the Yogg-Saron 1 turn earlier. It does leave a total of 7 damage on board, which means you're still not dead to Lava Burst, Rockbiter Weapon. There's not that many cards that kill you in one fell swoop, so it's down to kind of a totem roll, maybe giving spell damage with Burst, but even then, the odds of that are not very high.
And if that happens, Yogg will just heal you to full.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
The Tree of Life's not in the metagame, I'm sorry.
Double healing wave. He's a
Feral Rage times 7. That's all you got to do.
It's the power of Yogg.
He did play a ton of spells this game, though, by the way. Like
he is renouncing the darkness and putting his faith in the light. So
let's do this.
Praise RN Jesus and Yogg-Saron.
Not the card Naiman was looking for. He could still get the life tap to pick up a an ancestral knowledge for even more card draw.
Sure.
But
I imagine he's looking for life tap or Hunter.
Yeah, it's one or the other. And he
Mage.
goes for the Fire Blast.
Yeah, it's not the greatest one you can get, but not the worst one you can get.
How do you play this turn? Do you ever make trades?
Well, no. You know your opponent's playing Yogg 100%, right? Because they just ramped up on
8.
Yeah, on 8, and they thought about it for a while. So you go all face to try and maximize the odds that Yogg
Fireball kills them.
Yeah, and you expect all of the minions on the board to die anyway.
Oh, never
Holy
mind
crap.
that. I might change my game plan if I'm Hoej right now.
Oh yeah, you're swiping face every time.
Yeah, you get to armor up on the back of that too. No risk of Yogg killing you right away.
You probably just roar face as well.
Might as well. Yeah,
That's
push
6, 12,
18 damage and
19, 20.
You get like
19 damage.
Yeah, almost 20 damage.
Almost 20 damage. 19 damage. You set up lethal and
Yeah.
clear the board. And you get hero power up to 6, so your opponent is on spell power totem,
But it
lava
can't.
burst.
No, Lava Burst with ping from Mage is what you mean.
Oh yeah, lava burst ping.
It's
from
actually
Mage.
pretty. It's actually not that unlikely. Suddenly, like if Lava Burst is found, it's a guaranteed kill.
Was it appropriate for Naiman to play around that top deck, even knowing that Yogg was coming?
I don't know. I don't think so.
I wasn't playing around it either
Yeah.
in my mind. So
I suggested the trade with Drake, but it's more. It was mostly kind of a facetious, claim. I don't think anybody would ever play around the second swipe.
There's 2 swipes left. There's like 15 cards left or whatever. So it's 1 and 8 or.
He's played one swipe.
Oh, he's played one swipe.
He's already played one swipe. So
Okay.
it's 1 in literally
It's
15.
like 1 in 15.
7% almost.
7% almost. So do you want to play around 7%, or do you want to increase your Yogg outcome by what? Like, how much does it increase the Yogg outcome to kill them to get extra 2 damage on face?
Probably a lot more than.
It does make every spell kill them instead of none.
Yeah.
Besides Pyro. So yeah, it increases your odds of Yogg killing them by quite a bit, actually. That's a tough call.
I think it was correct not to trade into the Drake. Most of the time, I think it's correct. I mean, I think the Wild Growth is a big tell that the opponent's got nothing but Yogg, and he's going to just Hail Mary next turn, and you have to just bank on the fact that the Yogg either whiffs or the draw that he finds is just not swipe. And I think Naiman played well.
A Drake was played that turn as well, though, for the Druid. So that means they had 2 draws at the swipe. So, 1 in 16 and 1 in 15.
But the odds weren't even remotely on their side.
Well, yeah, that's true. It's not on their side, but it's so much in your favor to
not trade?
trade. Like, how often is the Yogg going to kill them anyway? That's a really interesting decision for sure.
So I think right now it comes down, like, if you're trying to want to analyze like Yogg-Saron outs, it's a really, really tricky thing to do. You can definitely do the math on it.
Yeah.
But it's going to be a lot of...
the odds of a spell targeting face with the board being as big as it is pretty limited as well. Yeah. So an AoE needs to happen first. And then you need to win the 50-50 that it goes face. And then it needs to be one of the spells that actually kill them. So I don't know if banking on the fact that Yogg's going to kill them is actually a good approach.
Yeah. But
like in my head, it seemed like a good approach at the time.
what draws help you. Like, now that you picked up Fire Blast, Life Tap's not something... Like, Life Tap might have changed your game plan a little bit, where you can draw more burn, so it's fine to let them not get the swipe ever. But when you're stuck on, Fire Blast, it's a little bit weaker. Yeah.
Well, it was definitely a top deck that decided that series, but it definitely comes down to the decision-making of the players that led to that top deck being a thing.
I think that was really crazy to think that it was only swipe or bust. Maybe Raven Idol would have actually not been too bad. Like, Starfall
Raven Idol's
worked.
got like...
Starfall?
Yeah, that's like 20% to be an impactful thing, because Starfall and swipe, right?
Yeah.
So... And there was 2 Raven Idols left, 1 swipe left. I think we were supposed to kill that Drake.
I think, like, looking back on it, I have to ask Naiman after the game if he thinks the odds were that stacked against him. The tell was there was no swipe, but...
Wait, he knew there was no swipe.
Yeah.
It's just talking about the percent chance of the top deck versus the impact of the face damage.
And the Yogg.
And the Yogg.
So that's a lot of cross-referencing to do. I can't do it on the fly. I'm going to say Naiman played well.
He did play well,
so,
yeah.
you know what?
So those are the spots where you can improve, though. Those are where you got to look back at your games and be like, what percentage can I improve by?
How can I improve against Yogg?
Well, you can do the math.
I love that. It's like it's the worst math ever because you have to have a spreadsheet of literally everything, and you just plug in the outs that's left in the deck, match with the Drake's extra deck. I just love it because it's one of those like super corner cases that you need to do on the fly because you literally can't prepare for it ahead of time.
You don't have your Yogg table memorized?
Dude, I have it perfectly memorized. Mind Blast, Mind Blast, Mind Blast. All right, so Hoej is going to be playing his mid-range hunter versus the mage from Naiman. We've seen Naiman play this deck before, at least something like it in the qualifiers. I'm not sure he's brought the exact same list because we tend to see a lot more of the like the slower lists from Tempo Mage coming out nowadays.
He brought in the qualifiers the most aggressive list you could possibly bring. He was bringing the hot form list with the 2 torches and the 2 acolytes, and I believe he's now slowed it down a little bit and, like many players, put in the Kabbalist Tome and took a little bit of hint from the Asian scene, and the Asian scenes have been consistently playing like Kabbalist Tomes instead of Water Elementals, has decided to cut one of the Water Elementals for a Kabbalist Tome and, focus more on spells throughout the deck rather than focusing more on minions.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting thing because there's a huge polarized I guess, development of that deck where you see people just going double Tome and double Flame Strike, and people are just like, no, sometimes Tome is just not good, and I'll play Water Ellies with Flame Strike still, or like RDU did.
It's just the difference between the regions with that is pretty crazy. You have the Chinese and the Asian regions collectively all playing, the super spell variant with double Kabbalist Tome and Ice Block even in the deck. And then all of the American players and the EU players all play, Water Elementals and focus on, traditional Tempo Mage being like aggressive on the board early game and following that up with minions, Faceless Summoner, things like that. So it's just really weird to see 2 different regions just totally say their version of the deck is better. Yeah,
I think one of the big issues that the deck runs into... That was a really interesting play, by the way, by Hoej. There was the option there to just ignore the Sorcerer's Apprentice and playing Horse Rider to clean up the images, but he chose to use the kill command, knowing full well that sniping in 3-2 in this case prevents so much problems from arising, because if something like Arcane Intellect is played for 2 on the back of Mana Worm, for instance, that's a disaster.
It is pretty huge, but he was kind of punished for it, though. Naiman didn't have the Arcane Intellect, so it's a risk you have to kind of assess and try and take there. And now Naiman just had a free board just to drop, Water Elemental on, but Hoej would have been taking 3 damage every turn that he left that Sorcerer's Apprentice alive while he was trying to cut through these mirror images, so he just valued, I guess, that the risk of the Sorcerer's Apprentice and the damage he's going to be taking is not worth leaving it up. He's probably expecting Naiman to be playing a super aggressive Tempo Mage deck, as that's what he's played in the past against Hoej.
Yeah, what I like about the play that Hoej makes, too, is that it sets up a turn 4 where you're putting down 2 minions, assuming the mage does not necessarily have exactly what he wants. And suddenly, those 2 beasts allow you to enable either Houndmaster on 5, which is a bit off curve, but it's also still
good,
rather viable, because you're forcing a Frostbolt to clean up the minions, or in that other case, you can use the Horse Rider on 5 with Hero Power or a 2-drop to then clean up the board a little bit further. So I really like Hoej's consistent line of play. It's thinking ahead pretty hard.
Yeah, just...
Look at that.
Getting that Houndmaster down. Worked out quite nicely for him here.
Yeah, there's a possibility of popping the Thalnos at some point. Do you just... I imagine you have to prop down the Houndmaster, right?
Oh, yeah. You got to get that huge Toad.
Or...
Nah,
you can't have to do it.
You got to go huge Toad. And then you got double 3 the following turn afterwards. It's probably a bit stronger than Highmane, as Highmane's just going to have a terrible time running into images and doing nothing. But maybe you do get Highmane out on 6. It's going to be depending on what happens on the board, right? But for this turn... I feel like it's got to be Houndmaster.
Yeah, because right now the ping from Naiman indicates that he wanted to set up a trade with Thalnos on the huge Toad, assuming you played something this turn. And on the flip side, if you end up buffing the Toad to 5, then suddenly the Water Elemental trades into it, and you're forcing removal away from your opponent's hand. If he had any, you would expect it to have been played.
Yeah.
So it's likely just going to have to trade.
I feel like it's pretty... Yeah, like you said, if there was removal, the huge Toad probably would have gotten Frostbolted. So most of the time here, you got to expect that Water Elemental being traded into the Toad and just dying, and that puts you in a terrific spot.
And that ping from the Toad could kill the Blood Mage, which is one of those swing plays that, even though it doesn't matter too much in the grand scheme, it's one damage you're saving from your Houndmaster.
Right, and an attack that you would probably have to initiate that you no longer have to initiate, which is absolutely huge.
So does he just ignore the board? Naiman has the option of doing that if he wants, but it seems really risky. Oh man, the Blood Mage ping! Oh.
That huge Toad.
Yeah, 25%.
I like high main on this board, honestly. I wouldn't mind high main.
Double Companion? Pick up that Huffer?
Double Companion, get Huffer is really good as well.
Oh man.
It's got pretty good odds to get the Huffer, you know. You get 2 1 and 3s at it.
I mean, the odds of your high main being dealt with here are pretty slim.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think high main's really sweet.
A lot of people are afraid to play that high main down, though, because a lot of players have been teching in the...
Ethereal Conjurer?
No, the Polymorph.
Okay, I was going to say,
we saw that in yesterday. Almost all of the Temple Mages had a Polymorph.
Well, a single copy of it, yeah which
so
was kind of interesting. Hoej had his options very open here. If the Animal Companion rolled a Huffer, for instance, he was willing to just trade away the Huffer and keep the Houndmaster alive. But like playing this way, if it backfired, then the Horse Rider took out the mirror image and allowed the horse, the Houndmaster to trade into the Drake, which was great.
Instead of going for like the second companion and having to get Huffer, you know.
On the second try, yeah. That was a very good play.
Now it's a bit awkward for him, though. He doesn't have the kill command for the nice cleanup on the Emperor Thorson, so it looks like he's going for the Leok first and then following up. Oof, doesn't hit the Leok for the clean trade. So now it's the question, do you kill the Emperor?
I mean, with the mage at such high health total, I feel very, very...
Inclined to kill
it, just because it's so dangerous. Not because of the mana cost reduction necessarily, but assuming there's any type of AoE coming down, you're in trouble. Just because the Emperor gets just, like, it snowballs out of control after that. There's Arcane Missiles at 0. That's also a possibility, which means your Wolf suddenly doesn't give value.
Whenever you see Emperor Thorson, the first thing that jumps in your mind is, there's an Archmage Antonidas in
that list.
Deck. Yeah. So we can definitely expect Naiman to have an Archmage Antonidas in his deck, and Hoej definitely is aware of that at this point and will be playing accordingly around that, I'm sure.
It's interesting, right? The Archmage Antonidas coming back in Tempo Mage because it was cut out a long time ago out of every single mage list.
Oh, wow, he's going face. He feels like his hand is so weak that he needs to push the face damage, right?
That is fascinating.
Maybe he doesn't expect Flamestrike to be in the list with such heavy cards as Emperor Thorson and Archmage Antonidas, but he's getting super punished for the risk he took here. He felt like the hand of High Main... Like it's so hard to win the game with just High Main left. So if Flamestrike happens, he feels like even if he trades into the Emperor, he's probably not winning the game, and he's super punished for his decision.
I mean, suddenly disaster.
Yeah.
Even the optimal scenario where Hoej picks up back-to-back, like Call the Wild, he's still in trouble. He is still not ahead, which is the really scary part. Because looking at this, this is nuts.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, Fireball gets reduced. The protection from the mirror images ends up making this Hyman completely irrelevant in the matchup. And there's the possibility that even Unleash the Hounds doesn't help too much. I mean, you can clean up a little bit, but the Archmage lives. So it's down to Deadly Shot, just RNGing your way through, and that's an Unleash he's going to be happy to see.
Yeah, you can push 6 to the face and then die.
Or kill the Emperor.
Even if he kills the Emperor, he dies, yeah. Because the Fireball will allow Naiman to create another Fireball, which would result in 12 face damage from the 2 Fireballs, and then 5 from the Tony.
Yeah, that is 17. I mean, he was on 1 health at the end of that sequence.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. He would be with two hyenas on board.
With 1 card draw off the top, there's no way for him to get lethal, so then he just gets pinged in the face.
I mean, the Hounds survive.
Yeah, but there's no top deck for lethal.
Call the Wild?
His opponent's at like 28. Call the Wild does like 8.
2 hyenas, 4 Hounds, a Huffer and a Leok. You need to trade one of them away, and then you push.
There's no way. There's no way.
There was like 17 or 18, but the opponent was above 20. So
yeah. So it is. I mean, always saving a little bit of time there. He knows there's no outs for him, but
the risk he took, I have to wonder just how worthwhile that was. I think it's a read on the type of deck he's facing off against. Did not anticipate the Flame Strike, or maybe thought it was possibly there and simply chose not to play around it.
Yeah, you could have definitely foreseen that there's Flame Strike and saw like, Well, my hand is Naiman. So my opponent's got 5 cards. If I trade all of my minions into Emperor Thorson and he plays something else big, now I just have Naiman.
But it was just a Misha.
Yeah, it's a Misha and the shield off of Argent Horse Rider, which forces it to get pinged, so it's essentially dead. So now you have just a 4/4 and a 3/3 against all of the mage's 5 cards. So you have 1, 2, 3 cards total if you count the 2 cards in play.
Sure.
Against your mage opponent's like 5 cards and they draw 1, so 6 cards. They have twice as many cards as you. Are you going to win the value game in that scenario? And Hoej's like, no, I'm not going to win the value game in that scenario, so let's go all face and hope we can win the tempo game.
Interesting. All right. I mean, even then, he needed a lot of runner cards to make anything work.
Anything work,
no
for sure.
matter
he was
what
in a
happened.
bad position for sure.
Yeah.
So he decided to take the riskier line of play while in a bad position. You can't really fault him for that. Maybe it's a little bit lower win percentage chance to play. I think it's probably not the highest percent chance to win that line of play, but I definitely think it's valid.
Yeah. It's consistent with his game plan. I mean, he saw the punish and just shook his head like,
he
"Oh
was
my
like,
God,
I'm
this
done."
is this is over." I played into something that I knew could be there, and
I took a risk and did
punish
not
was
get
there.
rewarded.
Naiman will be queuing up the Shaman up against the Reno Lock. This is something that I don't think it minds too much.
Oh, no.
Naiman's happy.
Naiman's real happy.
Yeah.
This is a really good matchup for Shaman. The only time the Reno Lock's really able to win this is, when they get the Doomsayer on 2 into the Imp Gang boss on 3 and then have Reno on 6,
Yeah, but the thing with Naiman's deck is that it also gives you the ancestral knowledge lets you refill.
Yeah.
Not for board. Because there's points where just pulling down a 4-mana 7/7 against a Siphon Soul is useless. You'd rather just get more card draw to find the double Lava Burst, double Lightning Bolt.
I definitely feel like Naiman's deck list is going to be a lot better than the traditional aggro Shaman deck list in this matchup. As you're saying, minions aren't great against Reno Lock. Reno Lock's real good at dealing with minions, except for the 7/7 on exactly turn 4 because
Yeah, I was going to say.
they don't have Siphon till 6. But for the most part, in the later stages of the game, Reno Lock's great at controlling the board and removing minions. They really struggle with just, raw face burn damage coming at them, and Naiman's deck's able to produce a lot of that.
Hoej does have the possibility of the Dark Peddler. He can also, if he wants, coin out the Possessed Villager on the back of that, or simply play the Imp Gang boss. In this spot, I'd be inclined to simply not play into Flame Tongue too hard.
Sure.
But of course, there's kind of cute. I mean, it's
One
one charge off
to
Doom.
I don't know. Maybe the Gadgets and Jouster. It's most likely going to be getting you a 2/3 for
Sure.
1 mana, so that's a nice little tempo swing. You may even be able to play it this turn if you expect to follow up next turn with Imp Gang boss.
Dragon Egg for the Hellfire play.
Okay, that seems ambitious.
Is the dream. But yeah, it's one of those things where he's got cards for his early game that are usually not that likely to be there. But it still doesn't guarantee that he's able to streak into a dominant board state. So holding off and just waiting for the Hellfire to get value is probably better. And now Naiman's going to have to choose what he wants to do with this Peddler.
He should be
if
playing
he
around
plays,
Hellfire here.
I was going to say, if he trades the shield away, then he's not playing around Hellfire, and this is correct.
Yeah, this is definitely correct. This is the way you make these trades. A lot of players tend to favor the value there, but Naiman has been showing he knows what Hellfire is. He's played around it every game perfectly.
And it's great to see, honestly, because for all the claims that Shaman takes literally 0 planning, I think there's a lot of even Zoo, for instance, his Zoo play earlier was flawless around the options of Reno.
There's definitely a difference between the good players of these sort of aggressive decks and, the pros. The pros will definitely be able to figure out their hand and play correctly around AoE and walk that line of extension.
Yeah.
So
it's interesting because, you do open yourself up to Mortal Coil, but it's true as well if you end up popping the shield. So in both cases, you end up with a 2-1 on board who's vulnerable to it, except now you also get to refill at 7/7 on the back of a Hellfire and keep even more pressure up.
Yeah, sometimes Reno Lock in its original days ran the big game hunter solely for the purpose of, after 4 mana 7/7 comes down, they can BGH it. Because Siphon Soul was too slow. They just needed some answer to it. But as Shaman has kind of decreased a little bit in popularity, and Reno Lock has fallen off the map completely as being played for the most part, they've sort of taken out the big game hunters. So I don't know if we're going to be seeing it today, since it's such a something that used to be there that just nobody plays anymore. But if Hoej's able to have Big Game Hunter in his deck,
oh my goodness!
But he's already used the coin.
It's all right. You'll be able to do this. You just play the Defensive Argus. You kill the Trog. You kill something you pop the 2/1.
Pop the 2.
You kill the 3/3 with your. I mean, this is great.
All right. So you trade the 1/1 into the 2/1. Then you Argus to get the 2/2 taunt and trade the 3/5 into the 3/3. You got BGH next turn. You're good to go.
I mean, I don't think BGH, like, I haven't seen it too much, even in Reno Lock these days. Like, a lot
Yeah,
of
yeah,
people
people
cut
cut
it
it
out
for sure.
completely.
Yeah, yeah.
So this is one of the best possible timings. I mean, it could have been better with the coin,
Yeah.
but he had to fight for the board with the information he had, which is, I have no way to deal
Yeah.
with any big threat. So the 7-7 wasn't even there yet. No guarantee that it would come out.
For sure, if he had BGH in his hand, he would have been prioritized trying to save the coin somehow, I imagine.
You just play M-Gang Boss, keep the coin, and maybe, you know, be safe against the 7-7. But this is a really solid draw for Hoej, because as bad as the matchup might be, this is the type of card draw that suddenly makes it a little bit less polarized. But, oh god.
Naiman can do some fun unoverload turns here. He can use, like, Bolt and then play Eternal Sentinel to then, you know, regain 2 mana on the turn.
And totem up, and he can also play the second Bolt afterwards. I mean, he's still on 5 for Doomhammer on turn 6. If you overload for just 1.
Connecting for this amount of damage seems pretty good here. He can connect for 9 if he chooses to do so.
Or even 10 if he wants to use the second Bolt to face, but I think toteming up is usually a tiny bit better.
Just as long as the 7 goes face, I think he's pretty happy. But you know, he's going to get pretty punished here by BGH, allowing Hoej to kind of stabilize. If Hoej is able to get, you know...
This is
unbelievable. We can see
unbelievable.
the difference between BGH and Siphon Soul here, too. Just that 1 mana difference being so huge in pretty much only this matchup. There's not really any other matchups with big game hunter targets where it's like super relevant to have BGH and Siphon Soul's just worse. But this is the one matchup where if you're not killing that guy very, very, very quickly, you're going to die. So...
I like that a lot. I mean, what's interesting, too, for Hoej is that, assuming he didn't have the BGH...
he has a decent answer still.
He can still play Hellfire. The issue is he goes down to 8 health against a Shaman who's shown that he's got the tools to just punish even harder because it's a standard aggro list.
Yeah.
So you have to be very worried about that. The fact that he's got the BGH gives him so much leeway.
Yeah, and we could definitely see him do the BGH here instead of the Hellfire, just keep his health total as high as possible.
Yeah.
He's not in a great spot still.
Yeah, I mean, he's dead in 1 turn, assuming he doesn't Siphon Soul his own minions, which he probably will have to at this
Well,
point.
he can Siphon Soul the spell power totem.
Sure. I mean, it's one of those things.
Yeah, it's just like 6 mana do nothing for your turn, though, isn't very great, and he just really needs to find Reno Jackson. If he finds Reno Jackson off the top, you know, he's probably going to win this game, but aside from that, it's going to be real tricky for him.
Yeah, now it's down to Naiman to figure out exactly how he wants to be doing this. He develops the minions, which suddenly makes Siphon Soul more appealing. If he goes for the clear play, he's playing around Reno. The question is,
can he afford to?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty close to being potentially unable to afford to play around Reno there. He's not setting up lethal in any
meaningful way, yeah. It's,
I
mean,
he's
the spell
relying on
damage,
top
a
deck
lava
for
burst.
sure.
Yeah.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, take a step back.
It's so defensive. It is playing around Reno, though. He feels like, you know, if Reno comes out, he needs the board clear, and then he has a chance against Reno, but it may be too defensive. It's one of those lines. But he's been doing this a lot the whole series, right? He's been, like, even with Zoo, he walked this line, and I was like, maybe it's a little too defensive, and it turned out that it wasn't too defensive, and he was still fine. So, you know, maybe he's got the read on it.
I think what's interesting is the fact that the spell damage totem guarantees that any lava burst is suddenly really dangerous. So he knows that there's actually a lot of draws that win the game for him. Like, unlike the standard, like the hybrid, there's really nothing dead in his deck. And
there we go.
Yeah, that's going to be it.
Pretty close.
No, that's it, right?
That's it.
Yeah, that's GG. Exactly lethal.
Yeah. He had double Rock Biter, double Lava Burst, and double Ancestral Knowledge to try and get there. I don't know how many cards he has left exactly, but we can guesstimate, you know, like maybe 17.
Yeah, there's got to be like about 20 cards left, but even then, it's still, what, like 6 to 8 cards in the deck that just almost automatically carry him to a win condition.
Yeah.
So barring Reno or a disastrous heal,
he wins.
He wins
most
the
of the
game.
time. So yeah, his line seems good.
Yeah, seems good to me.
Take the defensive line there and just know how his deck works, realize he's got enough outs, and play the odds on it a little bit.
And the funny thing is, if he doesn't clear the BGH and the minion, like the defensive Argus with the Doomhammer, and Reno comes out, game's done.
Yeah, if
he
Reno
lost
comes
the
out, he's
board.
dead. Yeah.
So,
but
that's
this way, if
longer.
Reno comes out, he still has a chance to beat me.
Yeah, it can still be done. So that was interesting from Naiman. Well done there with the Shaman. Takes up a really favored matchup, though, so really no surprise there. The Reno Lock for Hoej is just not performing remotely as well as he wanted to.
There's a lot of people that say Reno Lock's not a Tier 1 deck. There's a lot of people that say Reno Lock's not even a Tier 2 deck. And then there's a few people that say Reno Lock is the best.
Yeah.
And Hoej's one of those people. There's like Hoej, Stansifka, Life Coach, a solid group of really good, JJ even. There's a group of really good players that have never lost faith in the Reno Lock archetype, and stay true to it, and then there's everybody else, which just don't get it.
There's like Healbot and Belcher just in the wild, and everybody thinks the Greenlock's dead without them. And these players try to play Infested Tauren, as like a taunt substitute, and Cold Apothecary, and try to just salvage games with Bran.
If there is one thing going for Reno Lock, it's the fact that it absolutely destroys
every
warrior archetype. Just no questions asked. Control Warlock pretty much always beats the warrior archetypes. And
actually, Hoej's remaining decks seem to target warrior pretty well. I don't necessarily think that his entire lineup is liable to maybe take the warrior.
He does have the Reno Lock, which is great against warrior. He's got the Hunter, which is great against warrior. He's got mid-range Shaman, which is great against warrior.
He's playing the mid-range list, which is probably targeting the warrior. He didn't ban it for a reason.
Yep, and then he's got the Cthulhu Warrior, which I don't know if he has enough win conditions, honestly, in Cthulhu Warrior to beat other Cthulhu Warriors, but against a Dragon Warrior, I feel like he's going to be quite favored.
I mean, his Warrior's banned, so he's going to have to play the Druid, which is also okay, depending on...
The Druid's okay. It's not great.
Yeah, it's not... It's tougher.
It's tougher, for sure. He's going to probably queue that Druid last.
Or just try to get it out of the way early. One of the things, too, is that the Dragon Warrior is especially well equipped to put zoo-like pressure on Druids, which is what you want to be doing to them, so they never get on the board. But Violet Teacher is also really good against the Dragon Warrior, since it's only running maybe one Whirlwind or two sometimes like almost.
Just
like it's
usually
only
ghouls. Yeah. No Whirlwinds in the sense of the Whirlwind card.
Right.
Just 2 Ravaging Ghouls. And so, Violet Teacher can sometimes do Violet Teacher things. And, the Yogg Druids especially can just have those hands where you play Fandral really early.
And you win.
They don't kill it. And
Raven Idol, pick up another Fandral.
Nourish, just go crazy.
All right, so Hoej did pick up, a good turn 1 play, not something you always get in Reno. I think finding that early game is something very precious, especially against a deck like Dragon Warrior that gets on board quick.
I really like this play by Hoej, just developing the Harvest Golem and holding on to this Shadow Bolt. The reason why you want to be holding on to the Shadow Bolt is for fear of things like Frothing Berserker coming out and other scary minions that if you don't have a way to kill them, you're going to die.
Yeah, and what's cool, too, about the play is that, assuming the board doesn't get too much more threatening, he can always play his own Twilight Drake. The Shadow Bolt and the Harvest Golem tie up like a Twilight Guardian very well, and they can also just trade into this with a coil.
Yeah.
So his options make that Harvest Golem very versatile, right? Like anything that comes out makes his Harvest Golem flexible.
And the expense of getting all of these extra options for him is just 3 face damage, potentially.
Exactly.
Right? Like, it's just the Horse Rider is going to live an extra turn to punch you in the face, and other than that, that's all you're taking, 3 damage, and 3 damage seems to be worth 6 extra options on your next turn. So I like the play by Hoej there.
And if the War Axe comes out, you got the Ooze, so you're even happier if that happens.
He's just got it all. And Naiman here feels like he wants to protect his 3/3, so it looks like he's going for the War Axe to clear up the minion here. And
Coil, Swamp Ooze, unless he Blood to Icarus for the Coil protection, and he does.
Yeah.
Wow. Yep. Very, very good read from Naiman here, knowing that the only way he gets pushed off here would be, efficiently at least, would be from a 2-1 plus the Coil playing into the 3/3. So suddenly the trade-off of the extra 3 damage looks like a little bit more of a trade-off, where he might be taking an extra 6, and that is a lot more risky. Still,
I don't feel too bad about it, though. I think you just play the Twilight Drake and continue ignoring the 3/3, hold Shadow Bolt for more premier targets, and be patient with it. You don't even have to play the Ooze here necessarily, but...
I mean, I might be inclined to play just because it contests the 3/3 and there's really no way to deal with it, so...
It's really bad against Coin Blackwing Corruptor is the scariest part for me. Like, if they coin Blackwing Corruptor you're pretty much dead after you play that.
So what if you go...
It's just so much pressure so fast.
What if you go Ooze Tap, you trade the 1/1 into the 3/2, the 3/3 becomes a 3/2. If the Ghoul is played to clean up your 1/1, then you can coil the 3/3. If the Blackwing Corruptor comes out, you've got Shadow Bolt on the back end, with still the coil play on the 3/2 that's now a 3/1. So like, no matter what you do with the Ooze, I still think there's not that much punish.
I wouldn't hate it, but the argument for this play is like, is your opponent going to double trade into your 4/6 Drake, like with their weapon and their 3/3? Probably not. Sure. So what are they swinging at with the weapon?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know what they're swinging. Probably nothing. And then the Ooze is still going to be live next turn. You can play it with the Shadow Bolt. You can play it with the Earthen Ring Farseer. So now you have 2 options with your Ooze next turn instead of being locked into that one singular train of thought with the Ooze. And then your Drake comes down off curve and is super awkward. So I like the play by Hoej here, realizing the War Axe is probably going to be there next turn. Let's just be patient with it and find a better opportunity to play this Ooze a little bit later on during the game.
Yeah, if there had been a Ghoul, you expect that the Harvest Golem would have been toyed around with a little bit more. So it's unlikely there's something like Ghoul plus Execute. Given the fact that otherwise the Golem might have not eaten the Blood to Ichor right away. The Axe might have been played, pop it, wait a little bit longer, don't mind the coil on there, and then you just go on the back of that. So.
Now that being said, for Naiman, I really like playing the Execute this turn, using the War Axe plus the Execute to clear off the Twilight Drake. I like tempo executing a lot with the Dragon Warrior deck. He disagrees, likes to go a little bit more control-y, a little bit safer, save the Execute for something bigger, maybe a Mountain Giant, you know, whatever giant minion could potentially come out. And
Interesting. So now there is a live Mortal Coil for Hoej if he wants to trade away the first part, or the first half of the 1/1. So he can always cycle an extra card. He will not, however, develop anything besides a 1 health minion, like the 1/1, which is usually not something you want to do, but then you get to play, you know, your Earthling Farseer as a follow-up. So how do you play this turn? I feel like it's either super passive or just...
Yeah, it got really awkward as soon as Naiman decided to swing his War Axe and trade the 3/3.
Yeah, it got really bad.
Yeah, usually Dragon Warriors play a lot more aggressively. That's the tendency you can kind of expect them to go for. And Naiman is playing it super passively, and it's making Hoej's options really awkward here. And
it's playing around Hellfire brilliantly again.
Again, yeah, he's always playing around Hellfire. Yeah,
very good play there from Naiman. He's always just planning around the worst case scenario, Hellfire, which in this case it was not there, but it could have been.
Yeah, Naiman always plays he plays around everything, which is a very good way to play, but it can also sometimes be a downfall if your opponent doesn't have anything. Yeah, but it's really working out for him now because Hoej keeps trying to set up these traps for Naiman, and Naiman has just jumped around every single one.
Yeah, and Core Crown Legion is going to be like, all right, no more traps, I'm in. Like, I saw the Shadow Bolt, what's left?
Yeah, exactly.
Hellfire 1 minion, have fun. It's not going to be too bothered by this, but Reno Jackson certainly gives him...
not even bad here. Like, honestly, like a tempo Reno into, you know, Mountain Giant the following turn is not terrible.
Do you even just hate Earthling Farseer plus Ooze for board control? I mean, what's the Dragon Warrior going to do?
I don't mind just like tap Earthen Ring Farseer as well, taking the slower approach.
I guess you're right. Reno into Giant is good.
Yeah, having BGH is actually huge in this matchup.
Yeah, because the Draconoid Crusher is...
Yeah, Draconoid Crushers are 9/9s. There's
so here's the trick.
There's Ragnaros. There's sometimes Deathwing. There's sometimes Onyxia. Like, BGH is just lighting up the Dragon Warrior.
You slow play to enable the BGH, and then you Reno.
Okay.
So just let him get the 9/9, let him get the big dudes, and then you just value BGH.
Sure, makes sense to me. So I expect we see Hoej just dropping out this Earthen Ring Farseer. He's contemplating if maybe the Ooze is less
Defender really, you know, messes up the play. Unless Blackwing Corruptor's there, the Defender's annoying.
He might not even want to play any minions, it's looking like, but I really feel like you want to get the Farseer out.
I mean, if you expect the 4/3 to go phase, Draconic Crusher is still enabled, BGH gets value, you trade the 3/3 away into the 4/3. Usually you're happy about the outcome here.
Oh, he's going to play like around the BGH! Oh my god, what a play.
What a god. This is insane. Jeez. Oh my goodness.
Naiman's been just playing around everything all series. It's been beautiful. He just has the read on Hoej, man. He knows everything Hoej's doing. Hoej is just patiently setting up his board, taking that tap there, contemplating whether or not he wanted to heal with Earthen Ring Farseer to basically, because he was like, how do I make sure I'm at 15 so that the Draconoid Crusher can be live so I can BGH it coming down on turn 6? And Naiman's like, why is he spending so much time doing this? He's like, oh, he's got Draconoid Crusher. Yeah, he's afraid to play the Earthen Ring because he wants to make sure he gets to 15. And he just totally saw exactly what Hoej was doing, and now Hoej's getting punished for his kind of hesitation and meticulous
Look at that smirk, Naiman's face right now.
Yeah, he knows.
The smirk on that face knows he's just mind-gamed his opponent to death. So there's a choice here for Hoej to just play Sylvanas to contest the 6/6 very well, now that it's been drawn.
Well, the scary part is dying when you do that.
I mean, this is only a 6/6. 9 damage is not easy to come by in one turn.
Okay, yeah, it's true. He's only got 7 mana plus the coin, so it would need to be like Grom in a rage, right? So it's very unlikely he dies, so it's... Hoej's not in a terrible spot, but yeah, that was still just beautiful how Naiman was able to just pick up based on Hoej's hesitation that turn. Because I was wondering, too, at the time, like, why is he contemplating this Earthen Ring Farseer? And then I was like, oh, it's because he needs to make sure he gets the Draconoid Crusher active. Yeah, so he's just sitting there counting it and was just a little bit too hesitant on his line.
So you know what? I think in a nutshell, what we have to say here: you're playing against Naiman, play as quickly as possible.
Well,
do not
you have to either play as quickly as possible, or you have to think out your whole turn and then do it all at once. You don't want to start doing it and then stop and count and then do more. You have to just figure out the plan before you touch any of your cards, then do it, because Hoej is just planning out his turn as he's going, and that's what Naiman's picking up on. That's how he's making these reads and these signals, and he's able to play perfectly around what Hoej's doing, and now he's just going in to try and set up the lethal with the Blackwing Corruptor here.
But Hoej's got the perfect answer with the on-curve Ooze plus Reno Jackson, taking out the weapon and killing the 6s and getting it in the process. So this is going to mean that Naiman's going to rely on that ghoul to clean out the board after that's done. Not half bad, but it's going to put him very far behind because he no longer has the board, less card advantage, and is going to be fighting 1-for-1, knows there's a BGH or expects it, thus his rag is probably not very live. So trick spot for Naiman. Nosing is a bad spot if Reno comes out.
Yeah, the matchup's not great for Naiman, so you can't expect him to be in too great of a spot. You know, getting to this point for him was actually quite fortunate, and
I think it's beautiful. It's been a beautiful game.
It's been a beautiful game so far, yeah, for sure. I really like the playground.
Naiman's just absolutely trolling Hoej whenever he comes out with a Reno lock, because all the traps that Reno locks tries to set up are kind of obvious. There's not many of them. Like when they're trying to set up one trap, there's only one type of line of play that leads to it.
That's why the players that love Reno lock so much, is because you have to be setting things up, and your opponent kind of has to play into them.
Which is why every other pro player doesn't like it, because they read it too easily.
Yeah, some players are able to get the reads on it, and when you get all the reads on it.
Yeah, no more dragons, by the way, for the Blackwing Corruptor, so suddenly a little bit of an awkward spot. There is the possibility of Ghoul plus, Korkron Elite with the Execute on Reno, which does put a bit of damage, but the Ooze suddenly gets a little bit too much value, perhaps.
Yeah, the Ooze already taken out a Fiery Warx is now going to be able to take out a Korkron Elite. So, Hoej's at 26 life. He's feeling pretty happy about life right now.
Yeah, I really like the plays from both players this game, but it's going to come down to whether or not, Hoej decides to ever play BGH before the big dudes. There's no reason to.
There's no reason to. He's going to just, take the trade on the Ooze here and probably play out the Mountain Giant. Seems like a reasonable line of play, and then
hardly gets punished.
Gets a huge minion out. He's already seen the Execute, having the huge Mountain Giant out there. Now, if there's another Execute, you got to imagine the Mountain Giant will get executed, and then you have the freedom to play out Rag if you want.
I mean, the Ragnarok's coin flip is a good one for Naiman if it hits, but on the flip side, he expects the BGH, so it hurts.
But still, if you know there's a BGH, then this is the most value you're going to get out of Ragnaros, right? Ragnaros killing an 8/8 is literally maximum Ragnaros value ever if you know there's a BGH in your opponent's hand. So he's going for the super value here, which is force your opponent to spend 8 mana and kill an 8/8, but isn't able to do it. But at the same token, your opponent still has to play a 5 mana 4/2, and they're at 13 now. You get some sort of cute Grom thing going on.
He did get life taps, so that does give him the ability to dig for those big threats. I mean, something like Malkorok Gorehouse, Swing Face, or Reaper, Swing Face is a big deal.
Or tap into Grom Bloodtaker.
Yeah, why not?
He's got the coins, so you can make it happen.
Yeah, it's not impossible. Now, Hoej does need to find a good way to clean up the board. I mean, Shadow Flame, with BGH is half tempting. It's just one of those awkward moments where you might just consider, trying to taunt up something, BGH taunt. And just,
BGH Argus go face seems like
the best one.
The best line of play to me.
It's kind of weak to execute, but that's the only thing.
Your opponent can't Grom you and execute, though. That's the big thing with that play. So if you clear the board, your opponent can still Grom you in the face, but in this way, you push more damage as well. You get 2 taunts, so it's a little bit more awkward for them to get through. I don't find any 3-card combination from Naiman.
Oh my god, the draw from Naiman might extend this game a bit longer, and the Blackwing is live on the back of this play. What is this?
Yeah, it's still a Rag could kill him still.
Sure, but I'm just pointing out, this is still something that... this game has been going on way too long for this to be a Reno log versus Warrior game.
Typically speaking, they don't go on this long for sure. And plays around the Ragnaros, potential lethal snipe. Sets up a pretty decent board. Hoej's kind of back against the wall here. Has he played Infested Tauren this game? I don't think he has.
Not in this match, I don't think.
Just Harvest Golem and Sylvanas that come back for N'Zoth. So that's a scary proposition to play N'Zoth here. I feel like...
might want to go for the Spellbreaker Shadow Flame.
Well, if you do that, you don't develop anything. You're not establishing any initiative. I wouldn't feel terrible about Ragnaros.
I mean, it puts down the opponent to 1, which means he can't life tap ever if it hits the face.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
If there's only 8 on board, then you die too.
Well, your opponent has the coin. They have one other random card that is a dragon. So that means it's not Grom or an activator for Grom. You see 8 damage coming in. Ragnaros has already been played. What's the other way that your opponent is able to get then 5 additional damage to go with it with one card? The only 5 additional damage with one card would be Malkorok into Gorehowl or Arcanite Reaper or something. So if you rag and it goes face, they can't life tap into the 2-card Grom combo or any 2-card combination that can kill you.
And if you kill a minion, you're good to go anyway.
If you kill a minion, you're good to go anyway. So there's almost no way you die with the Ragnaros unless they exactly get like Grom and Blood to Ichor with the tap. So
and suddenly another dragon pickup with card draw for Naiman, making this Ragnaros a little bit less effective if the board is flooded. However, there are removal pieces in Hoej's hand, so he's got the ability to Shadow Flame if need be.
Yeah, and we will likely see him come out with the Shadow Flame to try and clean up some of this board.
Oh man, this has been an intense game.
Does Naiman want to play the dragon into the already flooded board, which is already vulnerable to AoE?
It's all about whether or not you anticipate any kind of board clear.
Well, it's about if can you win if there
you don't,
is. Yeah. Like, what does holding back the dragon really help you do? Like, it's not going to refill the board and take down Ragnaros by itself, right?
Yeah, and there's no point life tapping really at any point here. Like, coining out life tap doesn't really bring out any wins.
Yeah. So he's hoping at least that maybe the presence of the Fairy Dragon can help him win a little bit.
So wait, is there a Spellbreaker lethal if you go Spellbreaker on your Rag, you PO the Spellbreaker? Yeah, he's still a little bit short. But you can push a ton of damage because you get 8 controllable damage instead of random. So if something else comes out, you still seal the game with this. So I like this silence play on Rag.
Sure.
I love that. I mean, it does the same thing here, but it also gives you more control in the follow-up, right?
And with only one card, Naiman has no possible answer to this.
Yep.
So
he can't just flood the board and hope it works, right? Because assuming Rag is not silenced off, then suddenly the opponent goes Blood to Ichor, he got a 2-2, maybe that tanks the 8 damage, and then he's got more time to find Malkorok to swing at your face, and in slightly worse spots. So very well played by both players. This game was
pretty
amazing.
Crazy. That's very well played from either side. It's supposed to be pretty one-sided in favor of the Reno Lock.
I didn't see that game.
And, yeah, it seemed kind of close there. It was a really back-and-forth battle. A lot of players making some pretty solid reads and figuring things out throughout the early game. And
Name a smirk, man.
Yeah,
that smirk.
He was really happy about that.
He's like shaking his head like, Hoej, I told you 20 times, don't try to play your traps. It doesn't work. I see them. Very well done. I mean, honestly, it's good for Hoej that he picked up that win at least. Feels a little bit more confident going forward.
Yeah, he's supposed to, in the series overall, he's supposed to pick up that win, but now it's going to be a little bit harder for him. His following up decks aren't as good against Warrior as that deck is. He's still got a lot of edges against Warrior, but at the same time, you still have to favor Naiman. Naiman has all unfavorable matchups going forward, but they're not that unfavorable.
It takes one win.
And he only needs one win as compared to Hoej, who needs many more wins. So.
And he's also been playing very, very well, and probably assuming that he knows the decks inside and out. If you try to set up any traps for Naiman, I think he's going to read into it very heavily. Like, for instance, like the read earlier that there was no swipe, played the the Shaman according to that read. Every single match he's played, I feel like playing around with the opponent's hand was perfect. Yeah. It's just the draw that came out sometimes took him off guard, which is perfectly normal. Well, when that happens, there's not much you can do.
It's still you have to factor that into your decision making. That's maybe one of the strengths of Naiman is definitely figuring out what's in his opponent's hand and playing around it. We can see that very clearly. One of the maybe not so strong points of Naiman's play is he's unable to evaluate the percent chance of like them top decking something for that influencing his board decision.
Well, I don't know that he's necessarily lacking in that department, or he just disagrees with us as far as the stats. I mean, I haven't run the math.
We didn't run the Yogg math.
I didn't run the Yogg math on that specific turn. So far, I'd say Naiman's been playing very solid.
Very for sure.
Wonder if that throws Hoej a little bit, off his feet. Just off balance a little bit because Naiman's been reading into every single thing he tries to do.
Yeah, well, I mean, the way Hoej's been playing, he's been playing very open with his hand. He's been picking up cards, pointing them at things. He's been doing half of a turn, waiting 30 seconds, doing the other half of a turn. Like, he hasn't been, doing the traditional thing, which is you take your hand off the mouse, put your hands in your lap, you sit there, think for like a minute, whatever it takes, then put your hand on the mouse, do everything all at once, and then take your hand back off the mouse.
Yeah,
like
I think you're right.
That's how you're supposed to play Hearthstone, and to make sure you don't give away any reads or make it at least harder for your opponent to make reads. And Hoej has not been making it hard for Naiman to make reads. He's been very clear on his intent with most of his turns and all of his hesitations, and Naiman's been really capitalizing on that.
So here's an interesting thing. Like, how much of that should exist, right? Like how much of the whole you have to take your hands off the mouse to not give away information should exist? Because I'm sure there's like an argument to be made for different personalities where some people are more edgy, they need to hover over cards. Like, do you really is it fair basically that a player who feels like he just needs to hover to get all the things right?
The thing that you can do with players that are making those reads, you just screw with them.
Yeah, you just mess with them all the
you
time.
Mess with them all the time. So there's definitely like things that you can take from advantage of it, and mind games it causes, and it causes a meta within decision making and mind games. So I think it's really interesting and really cool. I love the fact that it's included in the game, makes it more feel like a real life live card game a little bit. So
like it's played in the tavern.
Yeah, I think it's a good feature to have in the game, and I think it's something that a lot of the semi-pros or just good players that aren't actually at the professional level with, that's one of the things that they need to start doing to take their game to the next level. Like that's just
become legendary.
Above legendary. I'm talking about like the players that are already top 10 legend to get to the next level after top 10 legend.
Like legend is nothing, but being legendary, that's another thing.
Okay,
that is like something else.
The legendary.
Yeah. All right, Hoej will be playing the mid-range hunter. There was a mulligan earlier, the Houndmaster. I think he didn't get the 2-drop that he was looking for.
Oh,
very good hit there for the bat.
Yeah. That's one of the things Hunter really needs. They have pretty low odds of finding their curve because they don't have the most consistent amount of minions fitting their curve as they possibly could. They rely on more having like power sweepers at the later ends. And then also all of their minions require 50-50s to be able to work.
Yeah. So, I mean, you have to roll like this Fiery Bat, Flame Juggler, Huge Toad, and Animal Companion all the way up to turn 4. So there's a lot of those coin flips you must win. Sometimes it can be a bit forgiving. If one of them works, the other one doesn't, you can still get away with it. But you still have to roll what you want to get. So Hoej, however, does not choose to develop the Animal Companion here. I have to ask you if you think that's something he should have done.
I think he should have developed the Animal Companion every time.
I
feel
like
the threat of your opponent playing a 3-drop there is so scary. You're playing around, like War-X Blood Taker as being your opponent's turn 3 play, but I really feel like you want to have that Animal Companion in play as soon as possible to impede your opponent's turn 3 play. And you have follow-up to removal. If they play into your turn 3 play, let's say the Frothing Berserker came down now, you'd have the kill command to punish that and continue pushing 4 damage faced with the Misha, or you'd force them to kind of remove your minion, and then you're relying on a top deck of a 1-2 or a 3-drop.
And you are still weak to the Blood to Ichor and Fiery War Axe. If that's what you were playing around, that's still going to punish you.
Yeah,
assuming you play one turn later.
I mean, he wants to save the coin for Call of the Wild, I guess, which is a strong line of play. But now he's
reasonable.
Now he's just crushed right now. He's on the super back foot. This frothing needs to be answered. It's going to continue growing. I think the decision to hold back the coin there was a bit too greedy. I think it was.
He still has the option of playing it this turn. So I mean, there's the play where you just go Huge Toad, coin, kill command to kill the frothing, and then suddenly you reestablish.
So much worse though than if you had already had the companion in play. Your opponent's forced to remove it, and then they're on the back foot instead of you. This game's totally flipped around just because of that one decision to be so passive and allow a free Frothing Berserker to come down.
I mean, if assuming you play companion,
assuming you play companion and you don't roll Misha. If you roll like Huffer, I guess it can be a bit awkward since it's so easy to remove the Huffer. I mean, or if you roll Leok and they play Frothing into it, you have the kill command to follow up. So
no, he's good with that play.
I would have liked to see the companion come down, I think.
I'm really curious because I'm looking at like all the possible turn 3 plays from Warrior that punish you for that play, and all of them get answered by leftover quick shot, kill command at the very least.
Yeah,
so there must be something I'm missing. Like in this case, I guess maybe it comes down to that healing because one of the things that you're not playing around is the ghoul. Because if the ghoul hits, suddenly it's contesting your Animal Companion.
Well, then you just quick shot the ghoul.
Yeah, exactly. You have to use your turn 4 to quick shot,
and then you develop a Huge Toad while doing it.
Yeah, you drew that.
Oh, you drew that? Okay.
Didn't have it.
Okay.
So I think it really plays around.
He did have a very small amount of minions, so I guess he was just trying to set up to be able to remove his opponent's minions and prioritize keeping his minions alive. But at some point, you got to realize your hand's shit and play to the top of your deck.
Okay. The way you word this makes it sound just de facto. Yeah. I can't disagree with it. I think it's just one of those cases where Hoej was banking on maybe coining out a minion a bit stronger than Animal Companion.
I feel like he's banking on coining out Call of the Wild. He's just like, I got all removal in my hand. As long as I can just remove everything my opponent plays and just hold on to the coin for dear life, then at the end of the day, when I coin Call of the Wild, I'll win the game. And
he's right.
It's working-ish.
Yeah, it's actually working. It's working pretty well right now, honestly. Like the fact that that's
what he was doing, because the double kill command quick shot hand does support that line of play.
It gets you to turn 8.
It potentially does. And right now, he's already on turn 6, so he's going to be able to coin Call of the Wild on the next turn. He's just got to figure out the best way to set up for it. And I think it's Infested Wolf Quick Shot, the 3/3.
And make sure you get, because honestly, if you don't do that, suddenly you've thrown away the entire game plan off to the side. And what this does also is sets up either the 1/1s come out of this and the Huffer, Leok buffs them on the Call of the Wild, or the 3/3's alive as a 4 attack minion to trade into the Blackwing Corruptor in this spot. It's actually lining up really well for that quick shot Infested Wolf play.
This very interesting line of play from Hoej of, surrendering the board early on, taking a lot of damage in the process, opening himself up to a lot of vulnerabilities throughout the course of the early stages of the game.
But you ought to win.
All the way just because Call of the Wild is such a busted card that he really wants to be able to play it 1 turn earlier, even at the cost of so many early turn advantages.
Honestly, it's working out for him.
And it might actually work. It's a very unique strategy for sure.
It's kind of like when we saw yesterday, I think, Jab and Sixo both had a game where they had to go for Archmage Antonidas on their Tempo Mage, starting a battle on turn 3 or 4. They had to switch gears around, directly lining up for that Emperor Thorson combo. It's not a deck that tries to do it necessarily, but this is kind of the same thing for Hunter. He went on turn 1, 2, 3, decided straight up, I'm going to coin Call the Wild. That's my game plan all the way through, and I'm going to start playing at the very end. So very heads up and consistent as well. Yeah,
he definitely had a plan, and he stuck with it. Now the question is, how much removal do you want to do here? You want to kill the 9/9? That's really expensive. Or do you want to kill the 5/4? And if you're killing the 5/4, are you opening yourself up to Whirlwinds? You've seen 1 Ghoul already. Are you
should be
too afraid of the second Ghoul or not? I think you're so far behind that I would play into the second Ghoul. But it's really a judgment call to feel like, can my board take out his 3 cards?
Yeah,
so
I think I think the fact that you get the extra spiders, like, you have to be worried about Grom as well, right? Like, if Grom comes out here and you don't pop the 9/9, you end up taking that full face, and that's a really scary thought.
That is definitely a consideration. It's going to be really hard for Hoej to outvalue this hand from Naiman, though. Just as it's set up right now, Naiman having a 9/9 in his hand, a Ragnaros in his hand, and even a Blackwing Corruptor, so just really big /value minions all the way through. And he was toying with the idea of playing Blackwing Corruptor, I think.
Would he execute for 5 to face for the Rag at some point, just a coin flip all the way through?
Sure. Okay.
Could try that.
I could see that. Yeah. I don't know. I think value trading the Leok might be a little bit better than trying to set up the Rag flip, but yeah, you get the heal, which is insane.
Yeah, actually, the Priest Hero power, for all the complaining we do about the class.
Oh, well,
when you're on the board,
in every other class.
Right, exactly.
Except maybe Rogue and Paladin. Like, every other class has, 2 drops and 3 drops that are worth playing. So you can get board tempo, and then the hero power is insane if you're on the board.
In a nutshell, the Priest hero power is overpowered in very specific cases, which Priest does not meet.
Well, Priest is probably the best hero power in the game.
Yeah.
But the issue with it is Priest, consequentially, because it has one of the better hero powers in the game, has some of the worst cards.
Because they have to.
Because they have to. Otherwise, it would be crazy.
Yeah, this class would be really problematic. That being said, this is pretty much what Hoej was hoping to put himself into his position-wise. The only issue is he still needs to pick up the big
theoretically, the way that Hoej did this, he was removing all of his opponent's minions, hoping the Dragon Warrior runs out of steam, and then having Call of the Wild carry and being able to out-threat him. And now we see Naiman has 9/9 into Grom into Rag. So it's like,
there's lethal looming next turn. The game is actually over with the Grom plus the 9/9 hitting for 13 exactly. Yeah. And Hoej will lose this Warrior, locking the series in favor of Naiman. That was a really crazy hand. The streak of draws Naiman got this game really allowed him to defuse Hoej's game plan completely.
Yeah, Naiman had a really good opening. He had a really good hand. Hoej took a different approach to the game. Yep. Like, depending on the different lines of play, you can't strictly say it's a misplay, but it was definitely a unique line of play, saving the coin for Call of the Wild instead of taking the stronger immediate board play, just because he values getting Call of the Wild on turn 7 so highly.
Yeah, I think it's
a riskier line of play. But imagine if there's no frothing there and there's no punish for it. Then Hoej probably wins the game from that point on. But the punish of the frothing was able to give Naiman how much extra damage? The first turn connected for 3 and then connected for 5.
Well, it was a threat that at some point Hoej
had to take an awkward turn to remove it. So it did 8 damage and Hoej had to awkwardly remove it. So it was a super big punish. But imagine that's not there.
Yeah, you win.
Then Hoej probably wins. Yeah. So it's an interesting risk and an interesting line of play for sure.
I think, all in all, the series was basically... I think it's one of the most exciting ones I've seen in the event so far. The way Naiman and Hoej played their decks, you could follow the reasoning. all the way through, no matter which game you looked. And Naiman's defusing of traps from that arena lock was just, it was beautiful to witness because you could see Hoej's despair once his game plan was figured out. And Naiman was just like, all right, the floor is yours, make your plays, and I'm still going to roll with it. So it was
it's awesome to see when players are able to actually pick up on what their opponents are thinking and make reads on them. It's just, that's my favorite kind of Hearthstone is when players are making reads on other players. So. I thought it was a great series to watch. Really enjoyed it. So. All
right. Well, Naiman will be joining Dr. Hippie in the winners match. Now, interestingly enough, that means there's going to be a team kill right off the bat from Virtus Pro. Does not mean they both can't go through because the loser of that winners match will be going down to match 5, where they will face off against whichever of Izoro and Hoej ends up winning the next match. We'll be having that being played soon enough. So, I mean, good play by Virtus Pro. I feel like they've been nailing this pretty hard.
Yeah, they're kind of a newer organization in Hearthstone. They haven't been around for very long, and they have a lot of success to their name already. They haven't played in very many tournaments, but the tournaments they play in, they do well in. Like every single one that they've played in so far, they really do pretty good in. So definitely a team to look out for. Upcoming Hearthstone organization that's doing a lot of work.
Yeah, I like it. So that being said, guys, we'll be taking a short break, and after that, we lied. We have an interview.
We're going to have an interview with Naiman coming up.
Sure, let's do it. An interview with Naiman. Slow down. Take the floor. Okay, we need to wait.
We need to wait.
Okay, so I guess we have a lot of...
we have a lot to talk about.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, I ate the worst sushi ever yesterday.
Yeah, the Chinese restaurant.
It was nasty, man. Like, I have nothing against sushi, but sushi in China is probably not where you want to be eating it.
I wonder why that is. Isn't it kind of popular in Asia in general? I thought so.
It's not quite. I mean, Japan and China are very different.
Very different. Yeah,
yeah,
sure.
They're not.
It's so sushi's not popular at all in Asia.
It's not quite like a globalized food. It's really just something we took from Japan, and then suddenly Chinese sushi just.
Don't eat Chinese sushi.
You can ask Frodan later on, but it's just bad. Don't do it.
Yeah. And there was a typhoon yesterday or something?
There was a typhoon.
Yeah, there was a typhoon yesterday.
50-50 to live through walking out the street. I mean, I was just, I just figured I'll lock myself in.
Yeah.
I'll play Hunter.
Yeah, play Hunter. That's a better coin flip for you. You don't die at the end of that coin flip.
Yeah.
You just, in the virtual world, die.
It's not a problem.
It's not really a problem.
Yeah, I mean, but worst case scenario, you smash your tablet after, 3 coin flips are lost.
Oh, jeez.
Do you do that?
No, I don't even own a tablet.
Pleb. What do you play on, your phone? All right, we have the interview, guys. For Frodan, we'll be interviewing Naiman, the winner of the match. We'll be back after that.
Sure, he was going to be playing Greenlock, and I knew he's going to have troubles with that deck.
Well, I mean, it is one of his favorite decks. I think he uses the climb ladder a lot too, but I think you handled it pretty well, all things considering. Now that you're going to be moving on from the series and playing against Dr. Hippie, a person on the same team as well, how does that change the dynamic at all?
I mean, it's probably going to be the same as during the European Championships, so hopefully I'm just going to win this game. After that, I'm going to meet him in the final and beat him once again.
All right. Well, I mean, it's because he's your teammate that he can get that far as well. So you're predicting Dr. Hippie to go in second in the group? You don't think any other person has a chance besides you two?
At least I hope so. Dr. Hippie is going to be second, I'm going to be first.
That's awesome. Well, what's your activities been like since you became the Winter's champion? I think people saw you try to compete also in the Spring Championship for the qualifier, but what have you been doing besides that as well?
Traveling a lot, visiting countries, and preparing for the wedding.
Oh, that's awesome. When is the wedding again?
It's going to be on the 10th of September in Kazakhstan, so everyone is kind of free. Feel free to join and to come.
That's good, and then you can make the honeymoon trip to America to win BlizzCon, correct?
Yep, sure.
All right, well, congratulations on your win, Naiman, and hopefully we'll see you back in the winners match.
Thanks a lot.
希望我们等一下能够在胜者组再次看到你。